Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS slate breakdown. Our slate breakdown this time is on the second leg of these round of 16 ties, including the Bayern and Inter and Liverpool games. I think I said quarterfinal in my video last time involving these teams. It is round of 16. And in terms of the slate, it is Inter with the biggest favorites at minus 300, despite being 2-0 up on aggregate here. And then we've got PSG and Liverpool basically a toss up, and the same can be said about this Bayern Leverkusen tie. Now, of course, the aggregates are a lot to keep in mind here, like Liverpool up 1-0 against PSG, meaning they only need a draw in this game to go through. So if the game is tied, PSG will be the team as the aggressors. And then for Leverkusen Bayern, Leverkusen should just be going through for it the whole time. And then for Inter, like if they go up a lot early, game could get very one-sided very quickly. Feyenoord can definitely throw in the towel if things get rough, similar to what we saw for that PSG against Brest tie a couple of weeks ago, where it was like 10, 11-0 on aggregate or something, which was pretty crazy. In terms of projected lineups and set pieces for Liverpool, in this team, I want to say it'll be mostly McAllister, maybe Robertson, maybe Alexander-Arnold, maybe Szoboszlai take something. I think most likely after McAllister is Robertson, just because there could be something of a split there. And then for PSG, it was like a Dembele monopoly last game. What I worry a little bit about is that they were super ineffective. They lost at home. They maybe want to switch that up just because they were unable to produce anything from those Dembele corners. So I have it as basically a coin flip between those two guys of who takes. If Dembele takes, though, what I will say is he's probably just a mega lock just because he's so good for DFS. Takes a ton of shots, takes a ton of crosses, and he'll just have he had like 28 floor or something first leg, and with them down this one too, he's still gonna have good flow throughout the game. Leverkusen and Bayern. Leverkusen should be a Grimaldo monopoly, I want to say, with no Beerts. He's injured now, got injured over the weekend. There's a chance that Alex Garcia starts and he'd be the one, or he'd be splitting with Grimaldo, so that's one thing to watch out for. But if it's this lineup, Grimaldo's in just a super smash spot. And then for Bayern, it should be Kimmich, Monopoly potentially, maybe Olise splits. They kind of chop and change between those two options. Kimmich will have something though for sure. Inter v Feyenoord. In this team, it should be an Aslani Monopoly. It's interesting. They have kind of what I consider the regular Inter guys not playing in the midfield, like Barella, like Çalhanoğlu. Both of them went 90 over the weekend. Is maybe the only reason they predict neither of those guys starting. But I'd still be semi-surprised if we don't see one or both of those guys, just because it's only 2-0 on aggregate. It is not a super cushy lead, especially if I don't get an early goal. So that's just something to watch out for. I'd love Çalhanoğlu started. He's just super good for DFS, just crosses a ton. Aslani, basically, is Çalhanoğlu light, does everything slightly worse, as well as being a bit of a sub risk there. And the other thing is Lautaro Martinez is not in projected, doubtful due to a muscle injury. We'll see how that shakes out. He's just a super, super important player to them. And then for Feyenoord, in this lineup, it should be a Paixão and Haj Musa split. However, I want to say I saw something on, yeah, Paixão is out. So ignore him being in projected. He will not play. And with him out, it could be a lot of different things. Like we could see Haj Musa Monopoly, maybe Ivanusic splits. Hong In Bomb, if he's back healthy, he could end up having some sets. So who knows, really? All right. Now, pricing and positions. Salah at 11K. This is a far cry from what he was for the Premier League slate just over the weekend against Southampton. He was like 2K cheaper. That's pretty wild. He was this PSG game was probably his worst game of the season. I think he'd even admit that by his own standards. Still, he's got the best goal scoring odds on the slate, like minus 110 or something, which is super favorable to him. You worry about the floor slightly, is the thing. And you worry about PSG. I don't think they'll dominate as much as they did the first leg, just because Anfield home advantage. But saying that, you're going to need probably two goal contributions, I'd say, from Salah to pay off that 11K price tag. So he's a debate. Like, I don't mind him by any means. Dembele, who is just going to be tempting because of the good flow. He's just having his best season ever. He's should be just an auto 90 player. So I'd be tempted by Dembele too. Like Salah and Dembele, I would have no issues going either of those guys. And you got like Arnautovic. I think he's a little bit pricey. Kavara, I never mind as a play. He had like 15 floor against Liverpool, taking zero set pieces, which was wild. So yeah, there's a ton of really interesting forward plays. Harry Kane, I haven't even mentioned yet. This is just underpriced for him. You just worry the game's a little weird because Bayern are already 3-0 up on aggregate. Like if Bayern say get a couple of goals, they would just sub Harry Kane because the tie will be over. But even then, like he's super tempting just because this is just so wildly cheap for a guy who just bags and goals for fun. Thuram at minus 7,600 either. If Lautaro is out, that potentially is a pathway to more Thuram minutes. This mid range, I'd say the pick of the bunch is probably Barcola. He's been in super good form as well. And once again, like all these guys perform against Liverpool, and it's not out of the realm of possibility to do something similar again, especially if one of them get a goal contribution. Haj Musa 5,700, I don't think is that terrible of a play. And you got these Liverpool guys down here too, like Luis Diaz, who I know didn't pay off first leg, but it once again it's Anfield home advantage. Like Liverpool are going to be likely playing more on the counter, which we saw pay dividends to them in the first leg, getting that goal off of the counter from Harvey Elliott with the Darwin Nunez assist. So I'm definitely gonna have shares of Luis Diaz and GBP again, despite him burning us that first leg. Midfielders, I think it's a rough midfielder slate. It's like I don't really love Elise. I don't love Musiala because of the aggregate. Çalhanoğlu I love, but he's unprojected. That's something to look out for. Kimmich, once again, I worry about the Bayern floor guys just because I just don't know really how much flow they're gonna have. Like Harry Kane, I think I can get away with it a little bit more since I'm playing for goal contributions anyway. I don't really care how much of the ball they end up having. Harry Kane gets 2 goals on the counter. He could have 20% possession. I wouldn't care. Kimmich, on the other hand, like he needs corners, he needs crosses, and if Bayern aren't gonna have the ball a ton, he just doesn't have an opportunity to get a ton of those. Szoboszlai, he's okay at 6K. I don't think that's terrible. He was just awful first leg. Alex Garcia, I think would be a great play if he starts. I love that, just because Leverkusen should go for it, and he's a cheap set taker if nothing else. Aslani, this is who I go if there's no Mkhitaryan. He's probably a lock if there's no Mkhitaryan even. McAllister 5,100. I worry about the flow slightly, but I don't think that's that crazy of a play. Then you're looking kind of these dumpster diving plays like Mkhitaryan, who I don't mind. And then the big one, Barella. If Barella starts, I think he's an auto play. He's got great floor to him. I know his minutes are a little bit concerning, but I could see this game, like I said, being super similar to that PSG Brest tie, where Inter can just rack up the scoreline, just Feyenoord can just give up. And he definitely gets opportunities he finds opportunities to get forward. So 3K Barella is a steal for me if he starts. I really hope we see him in the starting lineup come Tuesday. Defenders. Hakimi. He was very fine against Liverpool. I talk about how he doesn't cross a ton, and I'll stand by that. He still found a way to get there 11 in floor, which maybe you'd argue is not great considering they dominated and all the PSG guys probably had more points than him. Despite him being a fullback, a typically floor heavy position. Of course, you're not playing for Hakimi for that. Like he gets a ton of goal contributions. That is the advantage of him. And this Liverpool game could definitely open up if there's an early goal. Like say PSG score, Liverpool will have to go for it, and it could just become a shootout. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And if that were the case, Hakimi can definitely get in on some of those goal contributions. Trent, Tsimikas, I'm a little bit afraid of these more expensive Liverpool players. just because, or the defenders at least, just because I worry about the floor. Like I said, Alexander Arnold hasn't even taken set pieces, so that's scary. I don't think we see Simicast, but for similar reasons, I just don't love him here. Dumfries, I could see this as a pretty interesting play here. I kind of love Inter here, just like I did PSG a couple weeks ago. He's gotten, look at how many clean sheets Inter have gotten, by the way, like 10 straight or something, 7 straight clean sheets. That's just wild. And similarly to a Hakimi, he doesn't have insane like crossing floor, but he finds a way there, whether that be through shots, foul draws, and most importantly, goal contributions. I know he hasn't gotten that in the UCL so far, but if you just look at his Serie A numbers, he's just a guy who definitely runs the score up and can definitely pitch in with some goals and assists. Grimaldo, this is a lock for me. 5,500, that is too cheap. I will just be plugging him in almost every build probably. There's a strong chance that Leverkusen get 1 or 2 goals just because they're going to be sending everyone forward trying to come back on aggregate here. So I'm plugging Grimaldo here. I know he was not good against Bayern first leg, but I'm going right back to the well here, and I have no real doubts about it whatsoever. Other defenders, I'd consider Robertson. I could be tempted into a Robertson just because the what he offers that Alexander Arnold and Simicast wouldn't is just being extremely cheap. He's not been this cheap ever. And like I said, I think he's the most likely to have sets with McAllister just because he is a left-footed option. He offers something slightly different for different set pieces, whether that be if you want to do in-swing corners, whether that want to be some like lefty crossing free kicks. So yeah, like I said, I'd be super tempted by Robertson, even if the flow is not the best, even if the aggregate score is not that favorable. And then after him, there's really not a ton that I really love here. Got small, sure, but it's basically CB punts. Like a Virgil van Dijk, I'd go back to as well. Just because, once again, 2,600 is just so wildly cheap for a guy who definitely knows how to find the net and is just a big, dominant in the air center back. So I like that as a punt once again. And then those are the only guys I really want to talk about here for defender. And in terms of goalkeeper, as I always say, it is a crapshoot. However, there is a little bit more strategy for these second legs. For example, like an Allison should have good flow for a lot of the games just because even if PSG are winning, they'll still want to go for or winning in this game. They'll still want to go for the win in the tie. So they're not going to sit back likely. So Allison could still get there that way. You could maybe make the same argument for a Neuer as well, or it's not get Neuer's out. I mean, so it'd be who's been projected for Bayern in goal, by the way. I need to look at that. An Urbig, never heard of him, but he should have good flow throughout the game, if nothing else. So sure. Okay, guys. In terms of a core, like I've talked about the guys I really like here, Grimaldo. I'm putting Aslani for now, if because he's in projected, but him or Palinolu, I'd find a way to get to whatever one works and then just alter the rest of my builds. And then go Barella if he starts. That'd be my third core piece. If not, I don't really want to put a forward in because I think there's a ton of ways to go. But I'd be tempted by a Dembele. I might end up doing that anyway, especially if we see an Aslani, just because he offers a little bit more savings over Calhanoglu. But once again, that is the reason to join the FSI Discord through the website linked below, where I will have an update court once we have all the lineups. But for now, guys, that is it, and I will see you for the next video. Peace.